Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues, and dear students, good afternoon. It is both an honor and a solemn responsibility to speak before you today on a subject that lies at the very heart of our nation's identity, governance, and aspirations. The 1987 Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines. The Constitution is not merely a legal document, it is the soul of our republic. It is the embodiment of our collective will, our shared values, and our enduring hope for a just, humane, and democratic society. It is the supreme law of the land, and as such, it governs not only the structure and powers of our government, but also the rights and freedoms of every Filipino. To understand the Constitution is to understand the Philippines itself, its past struggles, its present challenges, and its future direction. A constitution born of revolution and renewal. The 1987 Constitution was born out of a pivotal moment in our history. It was ratified on February 2, 1987, excuse me, in the wake of the People Power Revolution of 1986, a peaceful uprising that ended 2 decades of authoritarian rule under President Ferdinand Marcos. That revolution was not merely a change in leadership, it was a national awakening. It was a collective cry for democracy, accountability, and the restoration of civil liberties. President Corazon C. Aquino, who assumed office after the revolution, convened a constitutional commission composed of 48 appointed members, men and women of diverse backgrounds, ideologies, and professions. Their task was monumental: to draft a new charter that would restore democratic institutions, prevent return of tyranny, and enshrine the rights of the people. The result was the 1987 Constitution, a document that reflects both the lessons of our past and the aspirations of our future. Why is the Constitution so vital in democracy? First, establishes the framework of government. It defines the three co-equal branches: the legislative, the executive, the judiciary, and delineates their powers, functions, and limitations. The separation of powers is essential to prevent the concentration of authority and to ensure a system of checks and balances. Second, it guarantees fundamental rights and freedoms. The Bill of Rights enshrined in Article 3 protects the individual from abuses of power. It affirms our rights to life, liberty, property, free speech, due process, and equal protection under the law. Third, it expresses the values and principles that guide national policy, from social justice and human rights to education, culture, and the environment. The Constitution articulates the ideals that the state must uphold. Fourth, it serves as a unifying symbol. In a country as diverse as the Philippines, geographically, culturally, and linguistically, the Constitution provides a common foundation upon which we build our national identity and pursue our collective goals. The Constitution is not static, it is a living document meant to evolve with the times, to respond to new challenges, and to reflect the changing needs of society. It provides mechanisms for amendment and revisions, recognizing that no charter can foresee all future circumstances. Yet, while it may change in form, its spirit must remain constant: the protection of human dignity, the promotion of the common good, and the preservation of democratic governance. As legal educators and students, we bear a special duty. We are not merely interpreters of the law, we are its stewards. We must study the Constitution not only with intellectual rigor, but also with moral clarity. We must teach it not only as a set of rules, but as a living covenant between the state and its people. In every classroom, courtroom, and community, we must defend the Constitution against ignorance, distortion, and erosion. We must ensure that its promises are not mere words on paper, but realities in the lives of our fellow Filipinos. In the sections that follow, we will journey through the 18 articles of the 1987 Constitution. We will explore its provisions, analyze its principles, and reflect on its relevance in today's world. Let us approach the task with both reverence and critical thought, for in understanding the Constitution, we understand the very essence of our republic. Thank you, and let us begin. Article 1, National Territory. As we begin our journey through the substantive provisions of the 1987 Constitution, we start with Article 1, National Territory, a brief yet profoundly significant article that defines the physical and legal boundaries of our nation. Let me begin by quoting the essence of Article 1. The national territory comprises the Philippine archipelago, with all the islands and waters embraced therein, and all other territories over which the Philippines has sovereignty or jurisdiction. This provision may appear straightforward, but it carries deep implications for our sovereignty, national identity, and international relations. The legal and geographical scope. The Philippine archipelago refers to the entire group of islands and waters that make up our country. It includes terrestrial domains or the landmass of over 7,600 islands, the fluvial domains, rivers, lakes, and inland waters, the aerial domains or the airspace above our land in waters, the maritime zones, which includes the territorial sea, the seabed, the subsoil, the insular shelves, and submarine areas. This comprehensive definition ensures that the Philippines asserts sovereignty not only over its land, but also over its surrounding waters and resources beneath them. Archipelagic Doctrine and the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or the UNCLOS. Article 1 reflects the Archipelagic Doctrine, which was later codified in the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or the UNCLOS. Under this doctrine, the Philippines is recognized as an archipelagic state, meaning that its islands, its waters, form a single unit for purposes of sovereignty and jurisdiction. This is crucial because it allows the Philippines to draw archipelagic baselines, or the imaginary lines connecting the outermost points of the outermost islands, and to claim the waters enclosed by these lines as internal waters, over which the state exercises full sovereignty. Beyond these internal waters, the Philippines also claims a 12 nautical miles territorial sea, a 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone or EEZ, a continental shelf extending beyond the EEZ, where the state has sovereign rights to explore and exploit natural resources. The importance of Article 1 has become even more pronounced in light of the ongoing territorial disputes in the Philippine or in the West Philippine Sea. The Philippines has consistently invoked Article 1 and international law, particularly the UNCLOS, to assert its rights over maritime zones, including the Kalayaan Island Group and the Scarborough Shoal. In 2016, the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague ruled in favor of the Philippines in its case against China, affirming that China's Snyder's Line claim had no legal basis under international law. This ruling reinforced the Philippines' sovereign rights over its EEZ and continental shelf. Thus, Article 1 is not merely a declaration of geography. It is a legal and diplomatic tool that underpins our national defense, environmental protection, and economic development. From a constitutional perspective, Article 1 serves several key points or key functions. One, affirmation of sovereignty. It asserts the Philippines' full sovereignty over its territory, both land and maritime. Second, basis for legislation. It provides the foundation for laws governing natural resources, environmental protection, and national defense. Third, framework for diplomacy. It guides the country's foreign policy, especially in negotiations and disputes involving territorial integrity. Moreover, it reminds us that territory is not just land. It is the space within which the Filipino people exercise their rights, build their communities, and pursue their aspirations. As educators and students of law, we must emphasize the importance of territorial integrity, not only in legal terms, but also in civic consciousness. Every Filipino must understand that defending our territory is not merely the job of soldiers or diplomats, it is a shared national duty. We must also teach that respect for international law, peaceful resolution of disputes, and adherence to constitutional principles are the hallmarks of a mature and responsible nation. Article 1 of the 1987 Constitution is more than a geographical statement. It is a declaration of identity, sovereignty, and purpose. It tells the world where the Philippines begins and ends, and it tells every Filipino that this land, sea, and sky are ours to protect, cherish, and pass on to future generations. Let us now proceed to the next foundational part of the Constitution, Article 2, Declaration of Principles and State Policies. Ladies and gentlemen, we now turn to Article 2 of the 1987 Constitution, an article that, while not always enforceable in court, serves as the moral and philosophical compass of our republic. It is here that we find the guiding principles upon which our laws, institutions, and policies must be anchored. This article is divided into two parts: principles, or the foundational beliefs of the state, and state policies, the declared commitments and directions the state must pursue. Though many of its provisions are non self executory, meaning they require enabling legislation to be enforceable, they are nonetheless binding on all branches of government and serves as a framework for governance. Let's talk about sovereignty and republicanism, section 1. The Philippines is a democratic and republican state. Sovereignty resides in the people, and all government authority emanates from them. This section affirms the republican nature of our government, one that is representative, accountable, and based on the rule of law. It reminds us that sovereignty does not lie in any office or official, but in the people themselves. This principle is the cornerstone of popular sovereignty, the idea that the legitimacy of government arises from the consent of the governed. It is the legal and moral basis for elections, public accountability, and citizen participation. Next, renunciation of war and embrace of international law. Section 2. The Philippines renounces war as an instrument of national policy. This provision reflects our commitment to peaceful coexistence and the primacy of international law. It aligns with the United Nations Charter and affirms that the Philippines shall pursue diplomacy, not aggression, in resolving disputes. It also declares that generally accepted principles of international law are part of the law of the land. This means that norms such as prohibition of genocide, respect for human rights, and the sanctity of cities are binding even without domestic legislation. Next, civilian supremacy and the role of the armed forces, section 3. Civilian authority is at all times supreme over the military. This is a direct response to the abuses of martial law under the Marcos regime. It ensures that the military remains subordinate to civilian leadership, preserving democratic order and preventing the rise of militarism. The Armed Forces of the Philippines, or the AFP, AFP, is tasked not only with defending the state but also with securing the sovereignty of the people and the integrity of the national territory. Next is separation of church and state, section 6. The separation of church and state shall be inviolable. This principle ensures religious freedom and government neutrality in matters of faith. It prohibits the state from establishing a religion or favoring one over another, while also protecting the rights of every citizen to practice their beliefs freely. It is a safeguard against theocracy and religious discrimination, and it promotes a pluralistic society where diverse beliefs can coexist peacefully. Next is independent foreign policy, section 7. The state shall pursue an independent foreign policy. This provision mandates that our foreign relations be guided by national sovereignty, territorial integrity, and national interest. It calls for a foreign policy that is not dictated by external powers but is rooted in the welfare of the Filipino people. In practice, this means balancing diplomatic ties, asserting our rights in international forums, and engaging in global cooperation without compromising our independence. Next is just in dynamic social order, section 9. The state shall promote a just and dynamic social order. This section reflects the Constitution's social justice orientation. It envisions a society where economic opportunities are equitably distributed, where poverty is addressed, and where every Filipino can live with dignity. It calls for reforms in land, labor, education, and health, areas that are essential for achieving inclusive development. Next is political dynasties and equal access to public service, Section 26. The state shall guarantee equal access to opportunities for public service and prohibits political dynasties as may be defined by law. This is one of the most debated provisions in Article 2. It recognizes that political dynasties where power is concentrated in a few families undermine democracy and perpetuate inequality. However, the lack of an enabling law has rendered this provision largely ineffective. As legal scholars and future lawmakers, we must ask what prevents Congress from enacting such a law? And more importantly, how can we empower citizens to demand political reform? Next, other key state policies. Article 2 also includes provisions on labor rights, that is Section 18, environmental protection, Section 16, health and education, Section 13 and 14, role of youth and women, Section 13 and 14, promotion of science and technology, Section 10, and autonomy of local governments, Section 25. Each of these reflects the Constitution's commitment to human development, sustainability, and inclusive governance. Next, legal and implications. As legal educators and students, we must understand that Article 2 is not merely aspirational, it is normative. It sets the standards by which we must judge laws, policies, and government actions. While courts may not always enforce these provisions directly, they often use them to interpret statutes, resolve ambiguities, and guide constitutional construction. In the classroom, we must teach Article 2 not only as a legal text, but as a vision for nation building. It is a call to action for lawyers, lawmakers, and citizens alike to build a society that is just, humane, and democratic. Article 2 of the 1987 Constitution is the moral preamble to the legal structure of our republic. It tells us not only what the state is, but what it ought to be. It challenges, it challenges us to align our laws with our values and our governance with our ideals. Let us now proceed to the next vital component of the 1987 Constitution. Article 3, the Bill of Rights, where the liberties of the Filipino people are most clearly and powerfully enshrined. We now arrive at the heart of the Constitution. Article 3, the Bill of Rights. This article is the most direct expression of the Constitution's purpose to protect the individual from the abuse of power and to guarantee the dignity, liberty, and equality of every Filipino. The Bill of Rights is not a gift from the state. It is a recognition of rights that are inherent, inalienable, and universal. These rights existed before the Constitution and will endure beyond it. The Constitution merely affirms them and provides mechanisms for their protection. First, let's talk about due process and equal protection, Section 1. No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall any person be denied the equal protection of the laws. This provision embodies two of the most fundamental principles in constitutional law. First, due process. This ensures that the government must follow fair procedures before depriving a person of life, liberty, or property. It includes both substantive due process, or the fairness of laws themselves, and procedural due process, the fairness of how laws are applied. Second, equal protection. This guarantees that all persons similarly situated must be treated alike. It prohibits unjust discrimination and mandates that laws must have a reasonable basis for classification. The next, rights against unreasonable searches and seizure. Section 2. The right of the people to be secure against unreasonable searches and seizures shall be inviolable. This section protects the right to privacy and the sanctity of the home and person. It requires that searches and arrests must be based on a valid warrant issued by a judge upon probable cause. There are exceptions as warrantless searches, incidental lawful arrest, consented searches, and exigent circumstances, but these are narrowly construed to prevent abuse. Next is privacy of communication, Section 3. The privacy of communication and correspondence shall be inviolable, except upon lawful order of the court. This provision is especially relevant in the digital age. It protects not only letters and phone calls, but also emails, text messages, and online communications. Any surveillance or interception must be judicially authorized and is strictly necessary. Next is freedom of speech, expression, and the press, Section 4. No law shall be passed abridging the freedom of speech, of expression, and of the press. This is one of the most cherished rights in a democracy. It allows citizens to criticize the government, express dissent, and participate in a public discourse. However, this freedom is not absolute. It does not protect libel, obscenity, or incitement to violence. The challenge lies in balancing freedom with responsibility, especially in the age of social media and misinformation. Next is freedom of religion, Section 5. No law shall be made respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. This section guarantees both freedom of belief and freedom of worship. It prohibits the state from favoring or discriminating against any religion and protects the right of individuals to practice or not practice any faith. It also ensures that no religious test shall be required for the exercise of civil or political rights. Next is liberty of abode and travel, Section 6. The liberty of abode and of changing the same And the right to travel shall not be impaired except in the interest of national security, public safety, or public health. This provision affirms the freedom of movement, a right that became especially relevant during the COVID-19 pandemic when travel restrictions were imposed. Such restrictions must be reasonable, proportionate, and based on law. Next is right to information. Section 7. The right of the people to information on matters public concern, shall be recognized. This is a cornerstone of transparency and accountability. Citizens have the right to access government records, contracts, and decisions, subject to limitations such as national security and privacy. The right empowers the public to participate in governance and to hold officials accountable. Next is freedom of association. Section 8. The right of the people to form associations, unions, or societies for purposes not contrary to law shall not be abridged. This protects the right to organize, whether for labor, advocacy, religion, or recreation. It is essential for civil society, collective bargaining, and democratic participation. Next is the rights of the accused, section 12 to 17. This section provides a comprehensive set of protection for persons accused of crimes, such as right to remain silent and to counsel, that is section 12, right to bail and presumption of innocence, section 14, right to speedy, impartial, and public trial, section 14, right against self-incrimination, section 17, and right against double jeopardy, section 21. These rights ensures that justice is not only done, but is seen to be done, and that the power of the state is not used to oppress the individual. Next is the right to just compensation, section 9. Private property shall not be taken for public use without just compensation. This is the principle of eminent domain. The state may take private property for public use, but it must pay fair market value. This protects property rights while allowing for infrastructure and development. Next is non-impairment of contract, section 10. No law impairing the obligation of contract shall be passed. This provision ensures legal predictability and economic stability. It protects agreements from arbitrary interference by the state, except when justified by public interest. Another is educational and legal significance. The Bill of Rights is the most litigated part of the Constitution. It is invoked in cases involving free speech, criminal justice, property rights, and civil liberties. As legal educators and students, we must master not only the text but also the jurisprudence that interprets and applies these rights. We must teach that rights are not abstract ideals, they are tools of empowerment, shields against tyranny, and foundations of justice. Article 3 of the 1987 Constitution is the guardian of liberty. It reminds us that the power of the state is not absolute and that the dignity of the individual must always be respected. Let us now proceed to the next essential component of our constitutional framework, Article 4, Citizenship, which defines who belongs to the Filipino nation and who enjoys the rights and responsibilities that come with it. Ladies and gentlemen, after exploring the rights guaranteed by the Constitution, we now turn to a fundamental question: who is entitled to those rights? Who is considered a Filipino citizen? And what does it mean to belong to a Filipino nation? Article 4, Citizenship, answers these questions. It defines the legal bond between the individual and the state, a bond that carries both rights and responsibilities. Citizenship is not merely a status, it is a legal identity, a political affiliation, and a moral commitment to the nation. Section 1 of Article 4 identifies who are citizens of the Philippines. It classifies them into two main categories. First is natural born citizens. Let's talk about that. These are individuals who are citizens of the Philippines from birth without having to perform any act to acquire or perfect their citizenship. They include those whose father or mother is a Filipino citizen at the time of their birth. Those born before January 17, 1973, to Filipino mothers who elect Philippine citizenship upon reaching the age of majority. Natural born citizens enjoy certain exclusive privileges, such as eligibility to run for president, vice president, senator, and other high public offices. This distinction is rooted in the belief that those born into the nation have a deep and inherent loyalty to it. Second, naturalized citizens. These are individuals who acquire Philippine citizenship through a judicial or administrative process. Naturalization may occur through judicial naturalization under Commonwealth Act number 473, administrative naturalization under Republic Act 9139, special laws granting citizenship to specific individuals or groups. Naturalized citizens enjoy the same civil and political rights as natural-born citizens, except for certain constitutional limitations on public office and ownership of land or media. Okay, let's talk about dual citizenship and dual allegiance. The Constitution also addresses the issue of dual allegiance, which it distinguishes from dual citizenship. Dual citizenship arises when a person is a citizen of two countries under respective laws. This is now recognized and regulated by Republic Act number 9225, the Citizenship Retention and Reacquisition Act of 2003. It allows a natural-born Filipinos who have become naturalized citizens of another country to reacquire Philippine citizenship without renouncing their foreign citizenship. While dual allegiance, on the other hand, refers to a situation where a person owes loyalty to two states simultaneously, often due to conflicting political commitments. The Constitution mandates that this issue be addressed by law, as it may impose a threat to national security and public trust. Let's talk about loss and reacquisition of citizenship. Citizenship may be lost through voluntary renunciation and naturalization in foreign country unless covered by RA 9225, service in foreign armed force, denaturalization due to fraud or disloyalty. It may be reacquired through repatriation, legislative grant, reacquisition under RA 9225 for former natural-born citizens. These provisions reflect the dynamic nature of citizenship in a globalized world, where migration, marriage, and employment often lead to Filipinos to live abroad while maintaining ties to the homeland. Citizenship is the gateway to political participation. Only citizens may vote in elections, run for public office, own land in mass media, enjoy full protection under the Constitution. It is also the basis for national identity. In a country as diverse as the Philippines, citizenship unites us under a common legal and moral framework. It affirms that regardless of ethnicity, religion, or region, we are all part of one nation. As legal educators and students or learners, we must understand that citizenship is not just a legal status. It is a living relationship between the individual and the state. It entails not only rights but also duties to obey the law, to pay taxes, to serve the nation, to uphold democratic values. We must also be vigilant against efforts to dilute or manipulate citizenship for political gain. The grant or denial of citizenship must always be based on law, justice, and national interest, not on expediency or discrimination. Article 4 of the 1987 Constitution defines who we are as a people. It tells us that citizenship is not a privilege for the few, but a birthright and a bond that connects every Filipino to the Republic. It is a source of identity, a foundation of rights, and a call to civic duty. Let us now proceed to the next essential elements of democratic participation. Article 5, suffrage, which empowers citizens to shape the future of the nation through the ballot. Mm. Ladies and gentlemen, we now turn to Article 5 of the 1987 Constitution, which enshrines one of the most powerful instruments of democracy, the right to vote or suffrage. Suffrage is more than a civic duty, it is the lifeblood of a representative democracy. It is the mechanism through which the people, as the sovereign, delegate authority to their leaders. It is the means by which citizens express their will, hold public officials accountable, and shape the direction of national and local governance. Article 5, Section 1 of the Constitution provides suffrage may be exercised by all citizens of the Philippines, not otherwise disqualified by law, who are at least 18 years of age and who shall have resided in the Philippines for at least 1 year and in the place wherein they propose to vote for at least 6 months immediately preceding the election. Let us break this down into its essential elements. 1. Citizenship. Only Filipino citizens may vote. This underscores the principle that political power belongs to the people, and only those who are part of the political community may participate in its governance. Second, age requirement. The minimum age to vote is 18 years old. This recognizes the capacity of young adults to make informed political decisions and participate in shaping the nation's future. Third, residency requirement. A voter must have resided in the Philippines for at least 1 year and resided in the place where they intend to vote for at least 6 months prior to the election. This ensures that voters have a genuine connection to the community in which they cast their vote. Fourth, not otherwise disqualified by law. Certain individuals may be disqualified from voting, such as those convicted of crimes or crimes involving moral turpitude, those declared insane or incompetent by a competent authority, and those who have lost their citizenship. These disqualifications may be clearly defined by law and must not be used arbitrarily to suppress political participation. Let's talk about the role of the Commission on Elections or COMELEC. The Commission on Elections or COMELEC, established under Article 9C of the Constitution, is tasked with enforcing and administering all laws related to elections, ensuring free, orderly, honest, peaceful, and credible elections, registering voters and political parties, conducting plebiscites, referenda, and recall elections. COMELEC plays a critical role in safeguarding the integrity of the electoral process. Its independence and impartiality are essential to maintaining public trust in democratic institutions. Let's mention about absentee and overseas voting. Recognizing the global presence of Filipinos, the state has enacted laws to expand access to suffrage. Republic Act number 9189 or the Overseas Absentee Voting Act of 2003 allows qualified Filipinos abroad to vote in national elections. Local absentee voting is also available for certain sections, certain sectors such as members of the military, police, and media who are unable to vote in their home precincts on election day. These measures reflect the Constitution's commitment to inclusive and participatory democracy, ensuring that no Filipino is disenfranchised due to geography or circumstance. Let's talk about electoral reforms and challenges. Despite constitutional guarantees, the exercise of suffrage in the Philippines faces several challenges, such as vote buying and electoral fraud, political dynasties and patronage politics, disinformation and manipulation of public opinion, and barriers to voter registration and education. These issues undermines the authenticity of the electoral process and distort the will of the people. Electoral reform must therefore be a continuing national priority. As legal professionals and educators, we must advocate for stronger campaign finance laws, transparent and secure voting system, voter education programs that promote critical thinking and civic responsibility, laws implementing the constitutional ban on political dynasties as provided in Article 2, Section 26. The right to vote is both a privilege and a responsibility. It is a privilege earned through the struggles of those who fought for freedom and democracy. It is a responsibility to choose leaders who embody integrity, competence, and a genuine commitment to public service. We, when citizens vote wisely, they strengthen democracy. When they vote carelessly or worse, sell their votes, they weaken the republic. In our classrooms and communities, we must teach that suffrage is not just about elections. It is about empowerment, accountability, and nation building. We must instill in our students the value of informed and principled voting. We must also emphasize that the right to vote must be protected at all costs from disenfranchisement, from manipulation, and from apathy. In conclusion, Article 5 of the 1987 Constitution affirms that sovereignty resides in the people and that the ballot is the instrument through which that sovereignty is exercised. It is a sacred right that must be cherished, protected, and used wisely. Let us now proceed to the next vital institution of our democratic system, Article 6, the Legislative Department which holds the power to make laws and represent the will of the people. Mm. Esteemed colleagues and students, we now turn to Article 6 of the 1987 Constitution, which vests the legislative power of the Philippines in the Congress. This article is foundational to our system of checks and balances, as it defines the structure, powers, and responsibilities of the branch of government tasked with making laws. The legislative department is the voice of the people in government. It is through Congress that diverse interests of our citizens are debated, reconciled, and translated into national policy. First, let's talk about bicameralism, the Senate and the House of Representatives. The Philippine Congress is bicameral, meaning composed of the Senate and the House of Representatives. The Senate is composed of 24 senators elected at large by the entire nation. Senators serve for 6 years with a maximum of two consecutive terms. The Senate is designed to be a deliberative body, providing national perspective and continuity in governance. While the House of Representatives is composed of district representatives elected from legislative districts, party list representatives elected through a proportional representation system for marginalized and underrepresented sectors. Members serve for 3 years with a maximum of three consecutive terms. The House is intended to be closer to the people, representing local and sectoral interests. This bicameral structure ensures a balance between national and local representation, between continuity and responsiveness. Let's talk about powers and functions of Congress. Congress exercise a wide range of powers, including one, legislative power. The primary function of Congress is to enact laws. These laws govern every aspect of national life, from education and health to taxation and national defense. Second, power of the purse. Congress controls the national budget. It enacts the General Appropriations Act, authorizes borrowing, and oversees public expenditure. Third, oversight and investigative powers. Congress may conduct inquiries in aid of legislation. It may summon officials and private individuals to testify. This power is essential to transparency and accountability. Fourth, power to declare war and approve treaties. Only Congress can declare the existence of a state of war. The Senate has the exclusive power to ratify treaties and international agreements. And fifth, power of impeachment. The House of Representatives has the exclusive power to initiate impeachment cases. The Senate has the sole power to try and decide all impeachment cases. These powers ensures that Congress plays a central role in governance, not only in lawmaking, but also in checking the executive and judicial branches. Let's talk about qualifications and disqualifications. The Constitution sets minimum qualifications for members of Congress. Senators, natural born citizens, at least 35 years old, able to read and write, registered voters, and residents of the Philippines for at least 2 years before the election. Representatives, natural born citizens, at least 25 years old, able to read and write, registered voters in the district they represent, and residents for at least 1 year before the election. These requirements ensures that legislatures have a genuine connection to the people. They serve, connection to the people they serve and the capacity to perform their duties. Let's talk about sessions and legislative process. Congress holds regular sessions beginning on the fourth Monday of July and may convene special sessions as called by the President. The legislative process typically involves filing of a bill, then committee hearings and reports, then plenary debates and voting in both chambers, then bicameral conference committee to reconcile differences, then presidential action or approval or veto. If the president vetoes a bill, Congress may override the veto with a two-thirds vote of both houses. This process ensures that laws are carefully deliberated, publicly scrutinized, and democratically enacted. Let's talk about partyless system. The partyless system introduced by the 1987 Constitution aims to broaden representation in the House of Representatives. It allows marginalized and underrepresented sectors such as labor, peasants, women, and indigenous people to have a voice in legislation. However, the system has faced criticism due to the entry of political dynasties and traditional politicians into party list groups. This highlights the need to reform and stricter regulation to preserve the spirit of inclusive representation. Let's talk about the checks and balances. Congress plays a vital role in the system of checks and balances. It can override presidential vetoes, it can investigate executive actions, it can impeach and remove officials, it can enact laws to limit or guide executive and judicial powers. These functions are essential to prevent abuse, ensure accountability, and uphold the rule of law. As legal educators and students, we must understand that the legislative department is not merely a lawmaking body, it is I mean, a forum of democratic deliberation. It reflects the diversity of the nation and the complexity of governance and the power of collective decision making. We must also teach the legislative power is not absolute. It must be exercised within the bounds of the Constitution with respect for rights and in service of the common good. Article 6 of the 1987 Constitution establishes Congress as the engine of democratic governance. It empowers the people's representative to make laws, allocate resources, and hold the government accountable. It is through Congress that the will of the people becomes the law of the land. Let us now proceed to the next pillar of government, Article 7, the Executive Department, where we explore the powers and responsibilities of the President and the executive branch. To be continued.